I have three sons now, but at the time I only had one son diagnosed autistic, and I started volunteering just so I could learn more about what autism was, and then just to get connections with other families that were, going through similar things that I was going through at the time. But the volunteering changed into the asking if I would like to, be an employee and be developmental director. So I went ahead and took that role very part-time, because my son is level 3 autism, and he was still taking a lot of my time with therapies and stuff. So I was very part-time. But eventually the executive director left, and the board asked me if I would be willing to step into the role as interim. And so I did. And after a search, they decided just to ask if I would like to stay on as director. As far as autism goes, I was not in the field prior to. My previous life, I was one of the executive managers for Kohl's department stores. So an HR background, and just running a business. So that's where the biggest thing as being a director came from, is that background. My level 3 son is now a sophomore in high school. And I've been fortunate that we had a really great IEP team in the beginning when we did the special education pre-K for him. And that initial team gave us so many tips and tricks that we didn't even know we needed, and that we still apply today. So I was very fortunate. What I've learned, though, is not everyone gets that experience, that not all schools do that. And so, partnering with other organizations such as Parents Reaching Out, we have a special education ombuds office now that helps in that realm, connecting our families with those so they can, and also talking from my experience is what has helped us the most. And that has been, meeting the schools halfway. We know that the kids qualify for A, B, and C, but not all the time the school can provide A, B, and C. And it's not because they don't want to, it's the resource just doesn't, they don't have it. They don't have that individual hired. They don't have the funds to bring that on. So we try our best as parents, my husband and I, to meet the school halfway and say, okay, we know you can't provide an EA, even though he's supposed to have an EA. So how can we meet you halfway for that? And I'm talking in terms of, he's in marching band. He's supposed to have an EA for all of his out of school things. Well, the school just doesn't have anyone. They've tried to hire. So I'm fortunate enough in my job that I am able to take that time. I can be his EA and be there for him. And so we did that to meet the halfway. I know not all parents can do that, but I just encourage families just to do their best to meet halfway for schools in that realm. Generally speaking, the school districts here in New Mexico would like to hire outside for the EA position, which is the educational assistant. He has an educational assistant with him all day, when he starts school at 7:20 to 2:20. Our issue was they didn't have anyone after 2:20 for that after school for the 3 to 5. And it's technically still a class, but it's 0 hour is how they do it at high school. So they just didn't have anyone for that 0 hour, and then to go with him out on events for the weekend. So that's where his dad and I step in, and we take turns being with him depending on our work schedules. But for here, so that's how we did that. But a lot of parents do want to be that EA, but the school doesn't recommend it. And it's not a bad thing. It's to help your child grow and to be independent of you, because that's ultimately what we want as parents. But at the beginning, I know a lot of us don't see that. I know I didn't when my child was in pre-K and kinder. I wanted to be that person next to him all day. But now that I've experienced being away from him and going through those things, I now understand that he actually does need somebody else. So we're one of the biggest resources for autism here in the state of New Mexico. And it's mostly for our information and referral side, where families will call and say, hey, I'm looking for this in this part of the state, or I need this. Evaluation is a big one. Families are looking for, and individuals, adults are looking for that evaluation. So we point them in the right direction. And if we don't have the answer, we have a great partnership with UNM, Center of Development and Disability. So we will get them connected with them, because they have an actual resource team that can like scour the state. Whereas for us, it's just me. ABA and occupational therapy. Those two seem to be the gold standard for autism therapies. And in these smaller towns, like rural areas like Roswell, Hobbs, this is in the southeastern part of the state, and you go to Gallup, the western part of the state. These are very few and far between. And even our state capital, Santa Fe, New Mexico, we have an access issue there. And it's not that these providers don't want to go in, it's they can't hire the people once they're there. Hiring the people is probably the hardest thing that we have out here, is getting the qualified candidate to move to these rural areas to help individuals. A lot of our families, especially our families that live on reservations, they travel anywhere from 50 to 75 miles to Albuquerque or Las Cruces to access care for their child for ABA and occupational therapy. We did work on that bill, that House bill, to get that age limit removed for anyone with. There's an exception that Medicaid individuals that are adults, they can qualify to receive ABA. What we didn't realize when we were passing this bill, that providers just don't have the capacity or I don't know, the right individuals to help our adult client that needs that additional ABA. We have worked with some great organizations that have made the exceptions and, hired people to get our adult individuals in. But it's been challenging still. And that bill was passed in 2019. So we're still working with providers, asking providers, we always refer, we have our ones like Autism Behavior Services, and a few others that have been willing to say, hey, just send them our way and we'll do our best to help them. And so that's probably one of the best things that's come out of this, is providers, even if they didn't provide it initially, they're like, well, why can't we? Let's figure this out. Let's continue in helping the individual. It doesn't end at 18. To begin with, is we started grassroots. We started talking to the community of Roswell. We worked with the mayor to get the MOU, to get everything started of where the park was going to be, who was going to take care of the park. And ultimately, we decided as an organization that we didn't want to take care of the park because we're small. So the city of Roswell said, if you can get us the money, we will build the park. We will, and then we'll maintain the park afterwards. So that was the first step. The second step was we started grassroots fundraising within the community of Roswell. And we had some really great fundraisers and talked to them, but we weren't getting the funds that we felt that to get it off the ground fast enough. And as we found, it was going to cost at the time $1.5 million, and we were only at $30,000 for funds after 2 years of trying to fundraise. So we partnered with the Kiwanis Club of Roswell, and we made a trip to Santa Fe, met with Governor Lujan Grisham's team and chatted with them, gave them the parameters of what we were doing. They said they would take it back to Governor Lujan Grisham. We then again met with Governor Lujan Grisham, and she loved it. She just wanted more details of what we were doing and what the purpose was for this. And the biggest purpose for us to build this park was access to a fun time for families, not just with autism, and for everyone. We wanted this to be inclusive. And so we laid out our plans to her, and she loved it and said, and granted us originally $1.5 million in capital outlay, and that was in 2020. Obviously, the world shut down, and we were very nervous because she was cutting the budget because the world shut down. but she was very gracious and she kept those funds for us. So after that, in 2021, we had to go back and speak with her because prices went up for materials, and we asked for an additional 800,000. And so the legislatures and Governor Lujan Grisham granted us the additional $800,000 to get it off the ground. It is built. It is completely done. The vision for this was access for our families. As you know, individuals with autism sometimes like to wander. There's a nice big fence around it, so parents can go in, close the gate, and their child can play, run around, go everywhere. It's a safe space. Wheelchairs can go in there. Any kind of walking device that's needed can go in there. Wheelchairs can access the play equipment. It's a phenomenal park. They knocked it out of the park. Personally, would like to see us grow in the form of staff, so we have more help across the state. So it's not just me. So that's the number one goal. But ultimately, I want to be out in the community more, providing the networking events that we provide for families, and I want to be able to partner more with our providers and the community as a whole. Like, we have a partnership with Albuquerque Isotopes. We have a partnership with APD. I would like to grow these programs that we have with both these organizations so we can close the gap that's there when you go to a big event. We know that it's hard sometimes to go to baseball games and such, and then close that gap with the tension between police and the disability community. And when we do these programs, we're not just working for the autism community, we're working for the disability community as a whole. And I think that's one of the bigger goals. I know our name says Autism Society, but our board of directors really feel like we want to be more inclusive to that. So everything that we do, we always make sure to say, anyone that needs the accommodation, please come. You don't have to have that autism diagnosis. Please come. If an individual with level 1 autism is just as valuable and needs just as much support as an individual with level 3 autism and level 2. We've been having this discussion. I just did a parent panel for my children's school, and I have 3 boys that are autistic, 2 level 1, 1 level 3. And I was very disappointed that everyone wanted to know more about level 3 autism than my boys with level 1. They still need support. They are still as valuable and need the supports just as much as the level 3 individual. And then that's where the voice comes into for my boys. I want them to be able to advocate for themselves and for each other, that they are equal in needing support.